Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back. Marco Levette, another episode. Her business, her voice, her conversation. Excuse me, got a little something in my throat. I don't know if it's the change of weather here in sunny Southern California, but we are going to power through because today's guest is coming with, you know how I always tell you, I give you how-to instruction and information. Well, today's guest is chock full of all of this. And I know I don't timestamp any of the episodes, but this one is right on the cusp of tax season, about to say bye-bye for another year. But there are things that we need to know because as we are entrepreneurs, we are dealing with taxation 24/7, 369, and we need to know some things. So I'm bringing on a certified finance and taxation professional, Patrice J Malloy. Patrice, thank you for joining us. I think you're going to save the day for a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you extending this invitation to me, and I'm excited to talk to the audience.
Well, I tell you what, the first thing that I really want, and I'm speaking for you guys, later on after we replay this, and if something comes up, you're going to have to go to the website, leave a message and say, by the way, why didn't you ask this question? And then we can put it to Patrice at a later date. So I don't want anybody to think that they're out of the mix. But being a small business owner, as a podcaster, a lot of people are going into attaching their podcast to a business. I read 45% of the population of podcasters want to do this. So here we are. Most of us came from corporate America, had that employee mindset, never really did anything with the taxation. We're W-9 folks, Now here we are. And we have a home office or we're renting space. We have the whole entrepreneurial setup. We've run into some taxation problems. So instead of stressing, excuse me, and doing nothing, being frozen in our seats, what are 3 things that we had better do right away besides getting a hold of ourselves and facing this thing head on?
Well, first of all, if you're saying that you have run into some taxation problems, my question to you is, have you received a letter from the IRS? Because if you have, you want to make sure that you answer that as soon as you can. So the beautiful thing about that notification is that they're going to give you time to gather your information, to prepare yourself, to give you an opportunity to connect with a tax professional who can help you craft your communication or response, and could also potentially work that whole situation for you. So depending on how you're designated, you can actually represent taxpayers to the IRS to make sure that you handle the problem appropriately. So
I want to stop. I know I shouldn't jump in here, but that is very important because there are some tax people, and I know from personal experience, there are some tax people that will say, oh, you got an audit letter, gather up all these bank statements and just send them on over to them. And you know what that's going to do? You are going to aggravate those people beyond. You are going to put 10,000 logs on that fire. So ladies and gentlemen, listen to Patrice when she says you get that letter, answer it, and get with a certified tax strategist. They can represent you. We don't even know the language. So why would we go in there with a whole bunch of papers, I just had to put that in there. Because that's very important.
No, but thank you for doing that. So here's the thing. On top of answering the letter, make sure you only provide the information that they're asking for. Some people get excited, just like you said, they throw a whole bunch of bank statements or whatever in an envelope and send it to the IRS. And that gives them the opportunity to dig even further into your financials and situations. So that's my second tip. First, answer the letter. And second, send exactly what it is that they're looking for. Don't give them ammunition to look further into your financials because they do have the option, depending on what you send them and what they find, to go into previous tax years to look and see if what you did was appropriate.
Wow. That's serious conversation. I'm sure that that's happened to people.
Oh, yes.
More people than we know.
Wow. And the third thing I would say is there is a taxpayer advocacy group that will help you navigate these situations as well. Taxpayers have rights. And first of all, when a communication is sent to you, you have the right to say, hey, IRS, why are you sending this to me? To send proof of why you're sending this communication to me. All right, because a lot of times, I mean, the IRS is overwhelmed, right? They are inundated with returns. They are backlogged because there are so many people in America that have filed their taxes, and there is such a small group of, IRS agents that can actually go through everything. So, a lot of error, quite honestly, takes place, right? They're like, okay, let's just kind of get this out of here. Let's get it out. Mm-hmm. And it may not even actually be something that you did, right? So you want to make sure that you verify that letter as well.
Verify. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
So those are top 3 things I would definitely say to start.
Gotcha. So here we are. We're on the end of tax season, and say a person needs an extension. Mm-hmm. Do they ask for that extension on their own? And hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm biased. I'm always going to lean on the professional, but that's just me. But if a person does, they are inundated. It's as you know yourself, to mm-hmm. run a business is like, wow, even with a VA or whatever, it's a lot of work. And if we're going to approach the IRS with a clear mind and we find that we need an extension, is that something that we should really look into? Will that cause us damage?
No, absolutely. If it's better to ask for an extension and get your information gathered than to just send something in, right? That's not, organized properly. That could potentially be leaving you, in a vulnerable place because you don't have all the information that you could, potentially have deductions and credits for, right? So I don't think you should rush it. You have the option to, call up your TurboTaxes, your H&R Block, whomever, if that's how you're doing it yourself, and say, I need an extension. So they would have to do it for you. Gotcha. Or you can find an accountant, a professional who does it for you, and then they can, file an extension for you as well.
Okay. Right.
But definitely file the extension if you don't feel like you have all the information that you need, because when we're rushing, you leave room for error too. And so there could be, a mortgage interest note that you had that you didn't apply because you were rushing, and that's a lot of deduction that you could be benefiting from that you just missed. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you do have the ability to amend your return, but then that causes, again, the IRS to take a second look at what's happening in your returns. So I would say kind of try to minimize the amount of interactions that you have with the IRS. If you can, just have all your information ready, let your tax professional handle it for you. And, or if you feel confident doing it yourself, take that time and space to make sure you have everything kind of situated.
It's all about taking your time mm-hmm. and being confident. And I hear you speak of having your information ready. Mm-hmm. We can't have a piece of paper here and how we have the shoebox thing, right, and the half done ledger. Right. Patrice, how do we get around that? I mean, really and truly, these days, there are so many programs and pieces of software out there that we can use so that we can, if it takes us a week to get organized or a farm outsource, whatever we have to do, this taxation thing is not going to go away and we have to stay organized. So what say you to that? Where does a new organization, a new business start? Just getting organized.
So that's a great question. I think everybody does need to be organized, and it's very important that as a business, right, you present yourself as such. One of the things that I find too, and this is kind of going back to the communication with the IRS, if you don't have yourself organized properly, if you're not actually showing that you have income, the IRS will treat you as a hobby, and you will lose the access and ability to even take those deductions in the future if you don't have yourself prepared. So that's one of the main reasons why I would recommend being prepared. The second reason, and I think that you should absolutely have some sort of accounting software in place, whether it's QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage. I mean, there are a ton of options out there, Wave Accounting. But you want to have the ability to track all of your transactions as they come into your account, all the money that's leaving your account, so that you're not, working in a spreadsheet, right? And not that spreadsheets are bad, but there's user error. You may not be able to capture everything. And when you have the software access, you're pulling transactions straight from your bank account. And so you don't have to worry about that whole, issue of missing something or coding something incorrectly, et cetera. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely having that in place is important. And then the second part of that is that they typically have apps, right? So everybody has a cell phone. If you're on the go, you can send an invoice on the go, you can take payment on the go, and it'll track everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you just, again, as much as you can do, as like automation, I think is so important to be able to help you as a business owner to kind of streamline everything that happens anyway. So if you have access to these applications, it's quick, it's easy, it's accurate. And then you can, have your stuff handy so that at the end of the year, you're not scrambling to figure out, well, how much should I spend or how much should I make? You already have it in the palm of your hand.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I must admit, I'm coming from the spreadsheet thing, and I'm seriously looking, and I don't want anybody to think that I have an affiliate link or anything, but I'm seriously looking at the QuickBooks because it's been around so long, and it seems to be easy. If you run into a problem, you can get somebody on the phone and that type of thing, and it does have the app. So my next question is, and this is very selfish. Okay, you're coming from the ledger, the ledger thing, and that's a half-baked ledger thing. Is it too late after tax season to go ahead and get into QuickBooks and merge everything? Just take that time to do it.
No, and that's, again, the beautiful thing about something like QuickBooks. You can pull in your transactions for a specified period of time, right? As long as your bank can provide you bank statements, you have the ability to pull those transactions in. But you have to do the bookkeeping portion of it, right? So there are a lot of different kind of steps. So even though the transactions are coming in my dashboard and I see everything, I still have to categorize them, right? And then I have to reconcile them. So that's one thing that I think, especially a lot of my clients, they forget that they have to do that, right? So there's two parts to bookkeeping. I have all my transactions. Now I need to make sure that my transactions in QuickBooks match up with what my bank statement is saying. And so this should be done monthly, quite honestly, at a minimum.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. I get a lot of cleanup projects with my clients, and it's like, you want me to do a year's worth of bookkeeping in a couple weeks? Yeah. Okay. So, you just want to make sure that you don't, set yourself up for failure by not looking at your finances. And second to that, you need to know where you stand as a business owner, right? It's not like I'm covering my eyes and I'm trying to kind of like point and, figure out wherever that lands, this is what's going to happen. You want to know what's happening. You need to be empowered. You need to be informed so that you can make good business decisions.
Gotcha. It's all about making the right business decisions. Some things need to be cut. We thought we need a certain program. We don't need that anymore. It's a hemorrhage. Get rid of it. We need to see that. Mm-hmm. So
can I just say something about that? Yes. As new business owners, when we talk about all these different kinds of softwares and things that we implement into our business, they have options most times to start a free trial, right? So if you feel like that's something that may work for your business, try it. Take advantage of the trial period. And if it doesn't, move on, and you're not spending all your money on something that, one, you don't use, don't know how to use, and may not even integrate into your business appropriately.
Gotcha. There's the financial part of her. She's sound, keeping our books right.
Yes,
but that's
we don't
true.
Want to lose money.
No, no, we really don't want to do that. You made mention of clients. So now you not only prepare taxes, but you do bookkeeping for people. Would you say that most of us, if we're a coach, or if we don't come from a financial background, we're coaches, we're trainers, whatever, we probably do need someone to look over our books, and you say we need to reconcile monthly. So do you think that we should go in and have a person set up our QuickBooks and then meet with that person quarterly? What do you suggest?
I really think it depends on your level of comfort. My clients, I have them at least start with me monthly. So we'll go over your books. We'll talk about what's happening. We'll talk about forecasting, for the future. We'll look at your income statement, balance sheet, profit and loss, and kind of see where you are financially. And then I also do strategy. So we plan, like, what are you trying to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months, the next, 6 to 12 or 12 to 18 months, right? And then we put strategies into place to work towards that. So it's not that I only do tax and bookkeeping. So I do CFO services. So basically I'm a fractional CFO for people as well. I look at your finances. We make sure that you're in compliance as far as, rules and regulations go, and your business entity and structure. Do you have your annual reports filed? So there's a lot of different pieces that goes into having a business.
Yeah, a lot of them. That business structure is huge.
Absolutely.
We think that because we are a solopreneur, there's a lot to that. There really is. So that takes me into business structure. We really need to pay attention to that because we think that we're playing it safe on a low playing field as a solopreneur when we really need to be an S Corp or LLC. What say you to that? When does a person know that, okay, it's time for me to really solidify and make this thing legit so that they know that I'm not a hobby? And I know I'm not a hobby.
So one of the things I typically recommend is starting off as an LLC. And the reason why I say that is because as an LLC, you have then separated yourself as me, the person, from the business, right? And the thing is, when you're, and there's nothing wrong with being a solopreneur or having a DBA or doing business as name, but when you're just you, right, and your social security number is tied to everything, if something were to happen, people could come after you and your assets. If you have an LLC set up in place, you have that kind of corporate veil, you have that layer of protection where, okay, well, something may have happened. You may be able to access what's in this business, but you can't take my home, you can't take my 401k, like that type of thing. So that's why I recommend having that at least in LLC setup.
Yeah, that's serious talk right there. It's happened to people. It
Absolutely.
really has. Can I just tell a quick story? And then I want to get your take on this. I live in Southern California, and I remember when the train was going through on being built on Crenshaw. And there were a lot of businesses, small businesses, been over there for years and years and years. Those folks didn't own the property, but they were doing business over there. So it was very disruptive when that train came, when they started constructing that line, and there was help for people, but they had to have their books together. They had to, and so many people weren't prepared. And there were people trying to assist them. I know some accountants trying to assist them. Some people made it and were salvageable, others weren't. So my thought for what you just said is, if they were an LLC, they could have had a hedge of protection. They would have had some kind of footing for what was coming. And we never know what's coming. Something's always coming our way. So what's your take on that? What?
So I'm going to take it a step further. So even having an LLC, one thing that I also recommend for clients is something that I have personally is a revocable living trust. So that's another structure and layer of protection. So my LLC is confined within this basically box that says, this is the name of the trust, but you can't see what's inside of it, right? So again, if something were to happen, people can say, oh, well, I heard you had, X, Y, and Z, but it's like, well, you can't prove it because you can't see it. You know what I mean? So you're not coming for me. So that's another thing that I highly recommend when we do estate planning. As much as you can, take things out of your name, right? Name it something that makes sense to you, but maybe somebody from the outside looking in cannot come and search for to identify you. And then again, put those layers in place so that, you can't reach me. You have to go through X, Y, and Z layers to even understand what's potentially inside of my box.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So it's very important to protect yourself. It's very important to have an estate plan in place. Not even just so for the protection, but if something were to happen to you, you have the ability to have people direct your estate.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And didn't we learn that through COVID? Woo.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
ma'am. Really put the spotlight on that estate planning. We just, there's so much to living. I mean, there really, really is, if we're going to live wisely. And we, back in the day, I remember my parents, they had that type of thing, the estate planning and the insurance and all of that in place. It was, and they were progressive, but now these days, that's just standard operating practice. And it has to be. It really has to be. I like the way you keep stressing, keep it out away from yourself. And we want to get mad at corporations. We want to get mad at so-and-so and so-and-so who's making a whole lot of money and they're just getting away with it. No, they're playing smart. What do you say to that?
Absolutely agree. They have lawyers upon lawyers upon lawyers on their team and accountants that help them strategize ways to not even bypass the taxes, but put their money in places, or I call it shift ethically, so that it's not taxable. There are different ways that you could do, even as, you know, you and I as business owners, you can open up a life insurance policy and fund your business through that. You can have an internal banking concept created through a life insurance policy. So if something happens again, I don't have to go to the bank and beg and borrow, you know, the money that you're holding, that's mine anyway, right? For 5%, 10%. All right. I mean, there's so many things you could do. So that's one of the things that these corporations do. They have tons of life insurance policies, and that's where a lot of their money grows.
Yeah.
And that's a non-taxable piece of, you know, security there.
Oh, now see, I did not know that.
So our 401ks, Roth IRAs, et cetera, they're tax deferred, which means you know, I'm not going to tax you right now, but at some point you will be taxed. Life insurance policies, especially index universal life insurance policies, are tax free. That's where we're growing the money.
That's another stream of income.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what we're all striving for. I knew this was going to be good. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Wow. I am looking at the time, and I tell you what, I have a ton of other questions. I guess the main thing is where are you located? How can people get in touch with you? Because if we have to be smart and we have to be strategic. So how do people get in contact with you? And will you name off a few of the other services that you offer to the small business owner?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I am located outside of Dallas, Texas. You can reach me at the Malloy Group, Malloy Group Inc. inc.com. I am on Google. And yeah, those are the quickest ways to reach me. And then, you know, if you come to my site, you can contact me that way. We can set up a meeting if that's something that you're looking forward to. And I'd be happy to speak with you. So some of the other services that I provide are, again, the CFO services. So the strategy, the financial reporting, the data analytics associated with your business. We also do the coaching and consulting. So I am QuickBooks and Xero certified. So we can do your bookkeeping for you. We can do your tax preparation and strategy and planning. The tax planning is the piece that we're supposed to be doing throughout the year. And then consulting. So, oh, excuse me, business formation. I forgot to mention that. So I do set up entities for people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You need an LLC and S Corp. I gotcha.
Gotcha. Now, as far as the taxation goes, you're there in Texas, but you're able to consult a person throughout the entire United States.
Yes, ma'am.
No geography. I tell you, you're bad to the bone. That's all I can say. Bad to the bone.
One last thing I'll mention, I'm also a licensed insurance broker. So if you are looking for life insurance, I am able to do that for you as well.
And you gave us that tip. So,
yes,
hey.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I guess what I want to leave people with is everybody, there are so many, it's scary how many people have a shingle hanging out. They can do your taxes. And there's a big difference between personal taxation filing and you LLC, S Corp, whatever, big difference. And you don't know that a person doesn't know and they're not qualified to make the difference until something happens. You do get that letter from the IRS. So before we leave, real quick, can you tell us how do we identify whether or not we are with the tax person that is made for us and our situation, our business?
A couple of things. So you have the ability to look them up, quite honestly, you know, Google search, or if you wanted to go to the IRS website to look for somebody who is, you know, in an EA, an enrolled agent, if they are CPA. Also lawyers have the ability to do that too. But you want to make sure that somebody who is qualified or has the education, the continuing education as well. And then you definitely want to have a conversation, you know, ask questions. If they're not willing to answer your questions, that's not somebody that I would recommend working with, right? You want somebody who has the heart of a teacher, heart of a servant, who's willing to walk you through what's happening and explain to you in a way that's understandable what's going to happen, right? So that's another thing. And then, so here's kind of the thing about the IRS letter. So you can't necessarily predict what the IRS is going to send, right? Because if I'm a new tax person and you come in and I don't know what's happened in previous years, or somebody who's worked with you prior to me, something could pop up in the tax year that I'm filing your taxes, but you do want to make sure that it's somebody who's, that says, okay, we got this letter, let's figure out what we need to do, right? You don't want somebody who's not going to help you through it, right? So that's also something. So making sure that they're transparent. If you can't get your questions answered, I wouldn't recommend working with them. If you just kind of feel funny with them, if they're not giving you like direct answers, that may be an indication that this is not, the right person for me. So I think it's just, things that we know just as people going through life when, something may not necessarily be right. That's probably an accurate feeling, right?
Gotcha. And personally, I'm thinking, look for that EA and CPA. I mean,
well, yes, but see, here's the thing though. So CPAs, so anybody can do taxes, right? There are people who are strategists, and that's who I would say really focus on, because some people, they could do your taxes, but they're not looking for the strategies behind saving you additional money. They're not looking at ways to incorporate or integrate things throughout the year to make sure that, hey, you can shift your income in this way so that you're not, your taxable income is reduced. So I would really say focus on a strategist.
Okay. I'm learning so much.
Thank you.
Man. Taking that last note. I believe in writing it down verbatim. Gosh. Thank you so much for your time. You're going to have to come back because, as you say, we reconcile our books throughout the year. So we need to stay on top of what's going on. Tax laws are coming down all the time, correct? And
absolutely. They're changing. So that's another thing. Again, when I said the CPE, so if you're constantly studying and going to the different, conferences and webinars, et cetera, where they're having new training, talking about the new laws and regulations, that's somebody who you want to work with.
Yeah. Wow. It's like, wow, it moves as fast as the podcast industry. It's just stuff that's always floating on. Wow.
Yes.
Well, thank you, dear lady. Thank you. And as I say, you're going to have to come back. I know that you were able to help all of us, because we can't, even if we've been in business 5, 10, 15 years, do not just take it upon yourself that you know it all. I recently read a book, Get Over, I Got It. It's okay to say, I need a tax strategist. It's okay to say, I need to go ahead and take this service and employ you for this service, because the last thing we want to do is be able to have to shut down, or I don't know, all kinds of things I can only imagine can happen to you when you get into this taxation problem. But we have help. Now we know someone that we can trust. So let's stay on top of our bookkeeping. Let's stay on top of what matters, the blood in our business. So I could go on and on and on. It's hard to close out when you have a good guest. It really is.
Thank you.
And brimming with information. You gave us how-to information. You gave us instruction. So that's what Her Business, Her Voice is all about. So
thank you. It was a pleasure.
I'll be back next week, another episode, and right here, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Take care.